In 1978, she was rechristened the MV Derbyshire, the fourth of the company's vessels to carry that name, the others having already been retired.
On September 9, 1980, the MV Derbyshire, a ship with the might of a warship, sailed into a storm. It sank in what should have been manageable weather, and it did so without sending a single SOS.
2 years later, in mid-July of 1980, loaded with 157,000 tons of iron ore bound for Japanese steel mills, the ship departed from Familial, Quebec, Canada.
For decades, its disappearance was a mystery blamed on the unforgiving sea. But the families of the lost crew never believed it. They knew something was wrong with the ship itself. Now, 60 years later, the full story can be told, revealing why this supposedly unsinkable behemoth was doomed from the start, and we finally know why. Silence on the waves. Stretching an incredible 965 feet, it was longer than 3 football fields placed end to end and dwarfed the legendary Titanic. Displacing nearly 170,000 tons when fully loaded, it was a moving mountain of British steel. On this voyage, it was carrying a massive cargo, over 150,000 tons of iron ore destined for the foundries of Japan. The ship was a modern marvel, an OBO carrier, meaning it could haul ore, bulk cargo, or oil. This versatility made it a cash cow, a vessel designed for maximum profit because it never had to sail empty. The 42 crew members and 2 of their wives on board had every reason to feel secure. Their captain, Jeff V. Underhill, was a seasoned mariner with decades of experience. The ship was only 4 years old, built to the highest specifications to withstand the most brutal conditions the planet could throw at it. As Typhoon Orchid approached, Captain Underhill did what any good captain would do. He followed standard procedure, reducing speed and pointing the ship's bow into the waves to ride out the storm. He sent a final routine message confirming his position and reporting the severe weather. It was the last anyone ever heard from the MV Derbyshire. There was no SOS, no panicked final transmission, nothing. The ship, with its 44 souls, simply sailed into the storm and vanished from the world. For 6 long days, an eerie silence followed. The ship's owners, convinced of its invincibility, didn't even report it missing. They figured the storm had just knocked out its communications. But when the Derbyshire failed to arrive in Japan, the alarm was finally raised. An international search effort was launched, with planes and ships scouring thousands of square miles of ocean. They found nothing. No oil slick, no floating debris, no life rafts. It was as if a vessel the size of a skyscraper had been plucked from the sea by an invisible hand. The search was called off in less than a week. The official explanation came swiftly. The ship was tragically lost to the overwhelming force of the typhoon. An act of God. Case closed. Many people are crazy about these kinds of mysteries, but for the authorities, it was just another vessel claimed by the sea. But for the families left behind, this story didn't add up. Other smaller ships had navigated the same typhoon and survived. How could a floating fortress like the Derbyshire be swallowed whole without a fight and without a single cry for help? It felt too easy, too convenient. It felt like a cover-up. They began to suspect that the monster that claimed their loved ones wasn't the storm but the ship itself. Their fight for answers would uncover a dark secret hidden in the ship's very bones. The official cover-up. The families of the Derbyshire crew were facing a wall of official indifference. The authorities insisted there was nothing to investigate. But one of those family members couldn't let it go. Peter Ridyard, who lost his son on the voyage, wasn't just a grieving father, he was a seasoned marine surveyor. He knew ships inside and out, and his gut told him the official story was a lie. He started his own private investigation, and what he found was absolutely chilling. The thing nobody tells you is that the Derbyshire was not a one-of-a-kind ship. It was one of 6 identical sister ships, known as the Bridge class. They were the pride of the British shipping industry built at the famous Swan Hunter shipyard. But as Ridyard started digging, a disturbing pattern emerged. Just 18 months after the Derbyshire vanished, another Bridge-class ship, the Tyne Bridge, was battling a fierce storm in the North Sea. Suddenly, the crew heard a sound like a gunshot. A massive crack had appeared in the deck, right near the superstructure. The captain, fearing his ship was about to snap in two, ordered an immediate evacuation. The crew was airlifted to safety just in time. Turns out this wasn't a freak accident. Ridyard discovered that every single one of the surviving sister ships had developed dangerous stress cracks in the exact same spot, a critical section of the hull designated Frame 65. The company was quietly bringing them into port for emergency repairs, reinforcing the weakened area. What many overlooked was that these ships were built at a time when the British shipbuilding industry was in decline. Facing fierce competition from Japan and South Korea, there was immense pressure to cut costs and speed up production. Ridyard uncovered evidence that last-minute design changes were made to the Bridge-class ships, modifications that were never properly tested. He believed a fundamental design flaw, combined with shoddy workmanship, had created a fatal weakness right at Frame 65. He presented his mountain of evidence to the Department of Transport, but they shut him down. They refused to reopen the inquiry. Then, in 1986, the case exploded back into the headlines. The Kowloon Bridge, another sister ship, ran into trouble in the Atlantic. Its hull began to crack. It limped towards the Irish coast, but eventually broke up and sank in shallow water. The crucial detail, the Kowloon Bridge was the only other sister ship besides the Derbyshire that had not yet received the secret structural reinforcements. Its dramatic public demise was the smoking gun. The government could no longer ignore the evidence. A formal inquiry was finally opened, but it was a sham. Peter Ridyard was never allowed to present his core findings, and the final verdict was another slap in the face. No evidence of structural failure. The Derbyshire was lost to the sea. The family's suspicions were not just ignored, they were buried under a mountain of bureaucracy. The discovery of a lifetime. Outraged and dismissed, the families refused to give up. They had been told their theories were baseless and that finding the Derbyshire was impossible. The ship was lost in the vastness of the Pacific, likely resting under 2.5 miles of water in a location nobody could pinpoint. But you see, their determination was now fueled by a sense of deep injustice. They continued to campaign, to write letters, to speak to any journalist who would listen. They kept the story alive for years, a constant thorn in the side of the shipping industry and the British government. Their persistence was about to pay off in the most incredible way. In 1994, 14 years after the ship disappeared, the International Transport Workers Federation, a global union representing seafarers, was so moved by the family's relentless fight that they decided to do what the authorities wouldn't. They funded a deep-sea search mission. It was a long shot, to put it mildly. They were searching for a wreck that had been lost for over a decade in one of the deepest parts of the ocean. The British government had called such a search a waste of time and money. Using advanced sonar equipment, the search team began to systematically scan the seabed near the Derbyshire's last known position. The odds were astronomical, but then after just 23 hours of searching, they found it. A blip on the screen confirmed a massive debris field. Resting silently at a depth of over 13,000 feet, 2.5 miles down, was the wreck of the MV Derbyshire. The impossible had been achieved. The ghost ship had been found. The initial images sent back by a remotely operated vehicle, ROV, were haunting. The ship was not in one piece. It was a catastrophic scene of twisted metal scattered across the ocean floor. The stern was found a full third of a mile away from the bow. It was clear the ship had suffered a violent and rapid end. The discovery was a monumental victory for the families, but it was also just the beginning. The wreckage held the final clues, the undeniable truth of what happened that night. A second, much more detailed expedition was launched, this one funded by the British government, which could no longer deny the evidence. This new investigation would become one of the most extensive underwater forensic examinations in history. The images they captured revealed that everyone, including the families, had been wrong about what caused the sinking. Vindicated at last. The forensic investigation into the sinking of the MV Derbyshire was a monumental undertaking, unlike anything previously attempted in the annals of maritime history. For years, a dedicated team of international experts meticulously pored over more than 200,000 photographs and countless hours of high-definition video footage transmitted from the silent, crushing darkness of the seabed, 4 kilometers below the surface of the Pacific. This was not a simple examination of wreckage, it was a deep-sea archaeological dig on an industrial scale. Using the revolutionary technology of photogrammetry, they began a painstaking process of digital resurrection. Each photograph, each video frame was a pixelated ghost, a tiny piece of a colossal puzzle. These fragments were meticulously stitched together in virtual space, creating a precise three-dimensional digital model of the debris field. In this digital realm, the ship was reassembled, its torn and twisted steel plates virtually bent back into place, allowing investigators to rewind the final horrifying moments of the vessel's life. The emerging picture was chilling and slowly dismantled the long-held theory that a single catastrophic hull fracture at frame 65, a structural weakness suspected by the grieving families, was the sole culprit. The truth, as revealed by the digital reconstruction, was both more complex and more terrifying. It was not a single event but a swift, brutal domino effect, a cascade of smaller interconnected failures that conspired to doom the mighty vessel in the heart of Typhoon Orchid. Here is what the investigation conclusively determined happened. As the Derbyshire valiantly battled the Typhoon, mountainous waves, far exceeding the vessel's design specifications, were not merely washing over the deck. They were hammering it with the relentless, explosive force of a wrecking ball. The first domino to fall was a seemingly minor detail, a set of small, unsecured ventilator covers on the foredeck designed to provide air to the forward compartments. The sheer hydrodynamic force of the green water crashing onto the bow tore them from their mountings as if they were made of paper. This initial breach allowed thousands of gallons of seawater to pour unimpeded into a forward compartment known as the bosun's store. This ingress of water added a staggering amount of extra weight to the very front of the ship, pulling its bow down and altering its trim. As the bow rode lower in the water, the ship's ability to ride over the waves was critically compromised. Each successive wave that crashed over the bow did so with even greater leverage and destructive power. The next and most critical failure followed swiftly. The immense repeated pressure of the water on the forwardmost cargo hatch cover, a massive steel structure the size of a tennis court, became too much to bear. The constant flexing and hammering caused its steel to buckle and then collapse inwards. In an instant, a catastrophic volume of seawater, thousands of tons, flooded the number one cargo hold. This was the point of no return. The bow, now burdened with an unimaginable weight, lurched violently downward. The ship was critically wounded and beginning its final, inexorable plunge. What followed was a terrifyingly rapid sequence of destruction. As the bow sank deeper, the angle of the deck became steeper, subjecting the remaining hatch covers to forces they were never designed to withstand. One by one, they imploded under the relentless assault of the ocean, each collapse more violent than the last as the ship went down. Within a matter of minutes, the entire front of the ship was submerged, its structure failing sequentially from bow to stern. As the Derbyshire plunged bow first into the abyss, the immense water pressure and the violent forces acting upon the hull caused the stern section to be ripped away from the rest of the ship, leading to the complete and total fragmentation that investigators had first witnessed on the seabed. It all happened so fast, so catastrophically, that the crew never stood a chance to even send a distress signal. They were, in all likelihood, consumed by the sea before they fully understood what was happening. The final report was a somber vindication for the families who had fought for decades for the truth. It confirmed that the hatch covers and other critical deck fittings were woefully and tragically underspecified for the conditions they faced. The families had been right all along. While the exact mechanism of failure was different from their initial theory, the root cause was precisely what they had claimed: a flawed design and a systemic failure of regulation and oversight. Their tireless two-decade campaign for truth and accountability forced a complete and permanent overhaul of international maritime safety rules. The construction standards for hatch covers, ventilators, and other critical deck fittings on bulk carriers were significantly strengthened worldwide. The enduring legacy of the Derbyshire and the 44 souls who perished with her is a fundamentally safer shipping industry for all who sail the seas, a testament to the profound change that can be forged from unimaginable loss. The families proved that a small group of determined voices can move mountains, or in this case, search oceans. Was this a tragic accident or corporate negligence? Let us know below. Don't forget to like and subscribe.